Her voice still echoes in my head, sharp as a shard of glass. "We don't have space, you old parasite." Can you believe that? That word, parasite. It was said right there within the very walls I built with my own two hands, penny by penny, from the money I earned at my sewing machine. Every stitch, every late night, every aching finger, all poured into this house, our home. And it was my own son, Michael, and his wife, Sophia, who spoke those words. In the home that was my heart felt like it just stopped beating right there in my chest, suspended in disbelief. I was standing in the living room, the very room I had decorated with so much love, so much care. I remembered picking out every curtain, every cushion, picturing our family full of laughter and warmth. I could still see the faded pattern on the armchair where Arthur, my late husband, used to read the newspaper. And in that instant, surrounded by all those cherished memories, the whole world just went silent around me. A deafening quiet, you know? All I could hear was that word. He was there, right beside her, letting her words hang in the air, letting them cut me deeper than any knife. My Michael, the little boy I used to tell bedtime stories to, nestled safely in his bed, the one who would snuggle close, his head on my shoulder, listening to tales of brave knights and princesses, his eyes wide with wonder. Now he was just an accomplice to my public humiliation. It felt like a deep, searing punch right in the gut, seeing him stand there, complicit. His silence was louder, more painful than anything. She has no fight left. Oh, if only they knew. If only they could see past the sadness in my eyes, past the silence I chose to keep in that moment. If only they knew that beneath all of that quiet exterior, there was a strength they couldn't even begin to imagine. A quiet kind of strength, yes, but a formidable one nonetheless. It wasn't loud or flashy, no. It was kept carefully inside a yellowed envelope, tucked away in a locked drawer, a secret that had been waiting patiently. Waiting for a day like this, I suppose, when I thought they had me all figured out. They saw what they wanted to see. An old woman, vulnerable, weak, a burden. They didn't realize that the very weakness they perceived in me, the quiet way I took it all in, the way I simply stood there, absorbing their coldness, was actually my greatest strategy. My silence was not defeat, it was observation. My sadness was not surrender, it was the calm before something entirely different. They had no idea what was coming. Seems like a long time, doesn't it? Almost 3/4 of a century. Most of those years, I was a dressmaker. It wasn't just a job, you know. It was a craft, a skill I learned from my own mother, watching her nimble fingers fly. All that effort, all that saving was to build our home. Not a mansion, mind you, just a good, solid house. But every single brick, every beam was laid with a promise. A silent promise that here, within these walls, our family would always have a safe haven, a place filled with memories, a place overflowing with love. Before all of this, before the coldness and the silence, my life was simple, and it was so full of affection. I loved tending my garden, you know, my beautiful rose bushes. I still remember how vibrant their colors were, how sweet their scent filled the air on a summer evening. and on Sundays, without fail. I truly did. I opened my doors, and more importantly, I opened my heart, genuinely believing that my family was just growing bigger, getting richer. I always had a way about me, a belief in order. I used to keep all my important documents, everything essential, in a leather briefcase. It was Arthur's, a gift from his father, and it always sat there on the top shelf of my closet. A symbol of responsibility, I guess. I always told myself, Clara, organization is the foundation of everything. Keep your papers in order, and your life will follow. I lived by that, and oh, how I loved having their laughter, the children's. It started to sound a little different somehow, not quite as carefree. And when I offered a piece of advice, a bit of wisdom from my years, it was often met with just a sigh or a quick, impatient glance. I was so caught up in my own little world of memories and love, I didn't even realize. I truly didn't see that for them, for Michael and Sophia, my presence wasn't a comfort anymore. It had become an obstacle, a thing in the way. And that old leather briefcase, the one they never bothered to ask about, never cared what it contained, well, that held the truth, the real truth about who truly called the shots in that place. They just had no idea, not a single clue. The shift, when it came, wasn't a sudden storm. It was more like a slow, quiet drizzle, the kind you barely notice until she'd always have an excuse, a reason for me not to be there. And I, silly old me, I believed her. I thought she was just being thoughtful, caring for me. Looking back, I see it for what it truly was, a gentle push, moving me out of their orbit. Then came the plants, my potted plants. I tended them with such care, you know. They were like my little green children. Each one had a story. The geraniums were from a cutting my mother gave me. The African violets were Arthur's favorite. I'd water them, talk to them, watch them bloom. But one day, I found them. Not in their usual spots on the patio or by the kitchen window. No, they were all clustered together in a forgotten corner of the yard, wilting, dried out, and in their place, where my vibrant living plants used to be, were these cold, lifeless plastic things, fake flowers, fake ferns. They didn't match anything, didn't add any life. And when I asked Sophia, she just shrugged. Oh, they were getting too messy, Mrs. Hayes. These are so much easier. My heart just ached. It wasn't about the plants, not really. It was about the disregard, the quiet disrespect for something I loved, something I put my heart into. And Michael, my Michael. He became a stranger almost. When I tried to talk to him, to ask about his day, to just have a conversation, he was always busy. Always. His eyes glued to his phone, his thumb flying across the screen. He'd just grunt, or say, or, yeah, mother, in these clipped, monosyllabic tones. It was like pulling teeth just to get a full sentence out of him. The boy who used to tell me everything, who would sit on my lap and chatter for hours, was now a wall. Distant. Unreachable. I missed him so much, even though he was right there, in the next room. Gradually, without me even realizing how it happened, my bedroom became my entire world, my sanctuary. my only refuge. I'd spend more and more time there, reading my old books, working on a little mending. I'd hear them out in the living room or in the kitchen, snippets of conversations, laughter. And then, the moment I'd step out to get a glass of water or just to stretch my legs, the laughter would cease. The conversations would stop. They'd look up, a flicker of annoyance in their eyes before quickly resuming, but in hushed tones, as if I was interrupting something precious, as if my very presence was an intrusion. It felt like I was a ghost. One day, I came downstairs, and the living room walls were painted a color I hated, a cold, harsh gray, without a word, without a consultation. Then the furniture started disappearing. Pieces that had been in our family for generations. The big mahogany chest, the one Arthur's grandmother brought over from Ireland, gone, replaced by some modern, uncomfortable-looking thing. I kept quiet, trying not to make a fuss, but then one morning I noticed it. My mother's dresser, a beautiful, hand-carved piece, passed down from woman. I tried to keep my voice calm, but there was a knot in my throat. "Sophia," I asked, trying to sound casual, "have you seen my mother's dresser? The one in the hall?" She turned, that cold smile playing on her lips, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. I felt like a ghost in my own story, trying desperately to understand where I had gone wrong. I blamed myself, you know? I truly did. Maybe I was being too demanding. Maybe I was old, and it was coming, sooner than I could ever have imagined. So much sooner, so much sooner. The day it all exploded, the day everything truly shattered, was a Sunday. A quiet, peaceful Sunday, just like any other, or so I thought. I had gone to church service, as I always do. It's a habit, a comfort, a place where I can find a bit of quiet peace and feel connected to something bigger than myself. The sun was shining when I left, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves in my garden. I walked home, slowly, thinking about the sermon, about the small joys of the day. But as I approached my house, the one I had built with my own hands and dreams, and from inside, I could hear it. Loud laughter, the kind that spills out and disrespects the quiet of the neighborhood. Music blaring. It was a party. A small party, yes, but certainly not a quiet family gathering. These were friends of Sophia and Michael, voices I didn't quite recognize, laughing loudly, their carefree shouts echoing through the air. I walked up the pathway, the familiar roses I had planted brushing against my skirt. Noise grew louder with every step. When I reached the living room, I stopped just inside the threshold. And then I saw it, scattered across the coffee table, some used as an ashtray. Ashtrays. Little piles of gray ash and cigarette butts sat in the delicate cups, the saucers stained with rings from forgotten drinks. My heart sank, a heavy, dull thud in my chest. It felt like a physical blow. All eyes turned to me. And then, in front of everyone, in front of her friends, in front of my son, she spoke. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the silence, full of a contempt I had never heard directed at me before. "Mother," she said, her smile gone, replaced by a cold, hard line. "We need to talk. Things have changed. Our children are growing up, and we simply don't have enough space. I looked at Michael then, my son. I searched his face, desperately for any sign of recognition, any flicker of concern, any hint of the boy who used to cling to tell her to stop. But he just stared at the floor. His eyes were fixed on the patterned rug, his jaw tight. He wouldn't meet my gaze. He wouldn't say a word. He just stood there, a silent accomplice. Then she uttered the words. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was the weight of every unspoken word, every judgment, every cruel thought in that room. It was broken only by the thin, reedy cry of one of my grandchildren, somewhere in the back bedroom. No one said a word to defend me, not one. Her friends just looked away or down at their feet. My own son remained silent by the people I had given everything to. It was a pain that settled deep in my bones, colder than any winter wind. I simply turned. Still there, still cruel. It echoed in the air, chasing me down the path. And in that moment, in that sound, I understood. I understood with a clarity that stung more than any tears ever could, that the love I felt for them, the deep, abiding love of a mother, of a grandmother, it was not reciprocated. Not anymore. It was gone, and I was alone. And I was alone. I just got into my old car, the one Michael always said I should trade in, and I drove, just driving, trying to get distance from it all. Until, almost without thinking, I pulled over. I found myself in front of a simple hotel, nothing fancy, in the nearby town of Asheville. It was late. The lights in the lobby were dim. I just needed a place to be, a place where no one knew me, where no one would call me a parasite. The room was impersonal. Beige walls, a stiff bed, a small window looking out onto a parking lot. It wasn't home. It wasn't anything like home. And there, in that stark, unfamiliar space, the full weight of it all finally hit me. The humiliation, the shame, the betrayal. It washed over me in a cold, crushing wave. I sat on the edge of that stiff bed, and I cried. Oh, how I cried. I cried all the tears I hadn't shed in front of them, all the tears I had swallowed down during those months of quiet disrespect, all the tears from every little slight, every forgotten plant, every dismissive glance. I just let them all come. Big, hot, messy tears that streamed down my face, soaking the cheap hotel pillow. I sat up straighter, wiping the last traces of tears from my cheeks. I wasn't a victim, I realized. No, that wasn't it at all. I was Clara Hayes. I was the owner of that house, the woman who built it from scratch, brick by painstaking brick, with her own 2 hands and her own hard-earned money, with the sweat of my brow and the thread from my needle. The woman who had poured her very soul into every corner, every room. The searing pain, that deep, raw ache of betrayal, it didn't disappear completely. How could it? But it slowly, steadily began to give way to something else. A calm, determined resolution, a quiet strength I didn't know I still possessed, but that had always been there, just beneath the surface, waiting. I wasn't going to just lie down and be discarded like some old piece of furniture. No, not Clara Hayes. And then I remembered the leather briefcase, Arthur's briefcase, my late husband. He was such a meticulous man, always so organized. He'd given it to me years ago, telling me to keep all my important papers safe. Inside that briefcase, in the locked drawer in my bedroom, was not only the deed to the house, clearly stating my name as the sole owner, but something else too. Something Michael and Sophia knew absolutely nothing about. The statements for a savings account, a secret savings account that I had kept hidden, tucked away for decades. A little nest egg. Arthur and I had started it together a long, long time ago. Just a small bit each month for a rainy day, he used to say. A reserve. After he passed, I continued to feed it. Every single dress I sewed, every alteration I made for a client, every extra hour I worked at my machine, a small portion went into that account. It was my safety net for an emergency, for when the unexpected happened. And this, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, this was the biggest emergency of my life. I wasn't going back there to argue with them. I wasn't going back to beg for a place to sleep, to plead for their affection or their mercy. No. I was going back to reclaim what was rightfully mine. And I was going back with the full weight of the law on my side. They wanted to discard me, to call me a burden, a parasite. We would see about that. That same night, instead of wallowing in self-pity, instead of letting despair consume me, I picked up my phone, my old flip phone, the one Michael always said was ancient. My fingers, still a little shaky, but firming with purpose. They thought my hands were only good for sewing and cooking, for tending to gardens and baking pies. But my hands, these same hands, also knew how to sign a contract. And they knew how to fight. Fight for what was fair. Davies was exactly what I needed. A serious man, very competent, with a quiet confidence that put me at ease. He listened carefully, taking notes, not once interrupting me with judgment or disbelief. He advised me, strictly, not to have any contact with Michael or Sophia. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, his voice calm, "let me handle this. Any interaction could complicate things." So I stayed silent. I stayed put. I waited. Mr. Davies began his work, digging into records, making phone calls. And then he called me. His voice on the phone was grave, even for him. He had discovered something I could never have imagined. Michael and Sophia, my son and his wife, they hadn't just kicked me out. They had gone to court. They had filed a guardianship petition to declare me legally incompetent. Can you believe it? Legally incompetent. He explained it to me, slowly, carefully. They were telling the court that I was forgetful and senile, that I was no longer capable of managing my own affairs. All of it a lie, of course. A carefully constructed lie. Their goal, he said, was to take full legal control of all my assets, everything I owned, and they believed, truly believed, that my only significant asset was the house I built, the house they were living in. The news hit me like a physical punch, not just in my gut, but deep in my chest. It took my breath away. It wasn't just simple greed anymore. This was something far colder, far more calculated. This was planned cruelty. They weren't just trying to get rid of me. They were trying to erase me. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about proving them wrong, proving I was still me. After I hung up with Mr. Davies, I felt a desperate need to talk to someone, anyone, who might still see me as Clara. There was only one person left. My niece, Sarah. She's a sweet girl, always had a soft spot for me, even after all these years. I called her, my fingers trembling slightly as I dialed. She answered, her voice a little surprised to hear from me. When I told her what Mr. Davies had found, she just paused. Then, her voice choked with sadness. She confirmed it. Sophia had been spreading rumors. It wasn't just my son, Michael, and Sophia. It was an entire web of lies. A careful, insidious network being woven to isolate me completely, to make me seem crazy, to turn everyone against me. I felt hunted, discredited, as if my very existence was being systematically dismantled. It felt like everyone I had ever loved, everyone I had ever trusted, they wanted to turn me into an invalid, a pathetic old woman, an easy target. But they little knew, they had absolutely no idea that with every deceit, every malicious word, they weren't breaking me. They were awakening a lioness. A quiet one, yes, but a lioness nonetheless. And that lioness was just beginning to stir. And Mr. Davies, ever the professional, was there, his quiet presence a solid comfort. And with us, 2 sheriff's deputies, their uniforms crisp, their faces serious. It felt official. Right. We pulled up to the curb. My house. The same house I had walked out of with my purse in my hand, leaving my dignity behind. But today, I wasn't just walking out. I was walking in. We walked up the path, past the rose bushes I'd replanted from cuttings, now a little wild, a little neglected. My hand, which had once trembled with grief, was steady as I lifted it and knocked. Not a timid tap, but a firm, clear knock. It was Sophia who answered the door. Her face, usually so composed, so sure of herself, was framed by the doorway. She had that familiar, mocking smile on her lips, the one that never quite reached her eyes. But then her gaze flickered past me, to Mr. Davies, and then to the deputies standing behind him. And that smile, it just died. It vanished, as if someone had just snuffed out a candle. Her eyes, wide with sudden confusion, then something close to panic, went from person to person. Michael appeared right behind her, stepping into the light, his face pale, his brow furrowed. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like forever. "What's going on, Mother?" he asked, his voice "What's this circus all about?" The words felt empty, brittle. He was trying to act tough, but I could see the fear starting to creep into his eyes, the same fear I'd seen in Sophia's. I looked at him, then at Sophia, with a calmness I didn't even know I possessed. It was a strange feeling, this quiet strength. My voice, when I spoke, was steady, clear, not loud, but firm. "This," I said, and I held out the judicial notice, a crisp white document, folded neatly. Michael hesitated, then took it, his fingers brushing mine. He unfolded it, his eyes scanning the words. Mr. Davies stepped forward then, his voice cutting through the tense silence, explaining everything in clear, precise terms. "Mrs. Hayes is here today," he began, his voice calm, professional. "This house, as the records clearly show, is and always has been solely in her name, Clara Hayes. You," he continued, looking directly at Michael and Sophia, "have been living here on sufferance." On sufferance. Such a harsh word, but so accurate. Michael looked up from the document, his face a mask of disbelief. Sophia just stared, her mouth slightly agape. I reached into my bag then and pulled out another document, the copy of the deed. I held it out for them to see. My name, Clara Hayes, clear and undeniable, listed as the sole owner. Then I looked at Sophia, meeting her eyes directly. My voice was still quiet, but there was an edge to it now, a steel I hadn't known I had. The memory of it, the sting of it, was still fresh. "You called me an old parasite." I paused, letting the words hang in the air, letting them resonate with their own bitter truth. Parasites are those who live off others, contributing nothing. This house isn't yours. It never was. The shock on their faces, that was my justice. It wasn't loud or vengeful. It was a silent, internal satisfaction. There were no shouts from me, no need for vengeance, just the truth. Cold, hard, undeniable. They started to argue, of course, to sputter out protests, to say it was absurd, a mistake. But the documents, the official papers, they spoke for themselves. Mr. Davies patiently, methodically, shut down every single one of their flimsy excuses. And then came the next part, the guardianship petition they had filed against me, the one trying to declare me incompetent. Mr. Davies informed them in no uncertain terms that it had been dismissed. And not only that, but they would now face an investigation for fraud, for trying to steal from me, from their own mother, from the woman who built this home, my son and his wife. The deputies then stepped forward, their presence a quiet, unyielding authority. "You have 48 hours," one of them said, his voice firm, "to vacate the property." I watched them then, my son and Sophia, standing there bewildered, stripped bare of their pretense. I watched them as the weight of their choices settled upon them, heavy and crushing. And in that moment, seeing their faces, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them, I understood something deep in my heart. The greatest punishment for them wasn't just losing the house. It wasn't just the public humiliation or even the looming legal trouble. No. Their greatest punishment was facing the reflection of their own pettiness, the raw, ugly truth of what they had become. But for me, the fight was just beginning. What they would do now, where they would go, I had no idea. But for me, the fight was just beginning. It was a different kind of fight, though, not against them anymore, but for myself. In the first few days after they left, the silence of the house was deafening. It wasn't the quiet I used to cherish, the peaceful hum of a home. No, this silence was heavy, thick with the echoes of their laughter, their cruel words, the shadow of their betrayal. Every room felt empty, yet full of ghosts. I walked from one end to the other, the floorboards creaking under my feet, and it felt so much bigger without their presence, yet also hollow. The first thing I did was change the locks, all of them. It felt symbolic, like sealing off the past. I called a kind woman, Mrs. Henderson, from the nearby town, who sometimes helped with cleaning. Together, we began the task. A deep cleaning, every surface scrubbed, every corner dusted. It wasn't just cleaning a house, it was cleansing my soul. We packed up everything that was theirs: their clothes, their books, their children's toys. Michael as a boy, Sophia with her bright, confident smile. My grandchildren, their faces full of innocent joy. I gathered them all and put them in a plain cardboard box. Not out of hatred, no, I couldn't hate. But I needed space to breathe, to be Clara again, not just Michael's mother or Sophia's mother-in-law. I needed to see my own life reflected in my home, not theirs. Slowly, little by little, life began to flourish again within these walls. I went out to my garden, which had become so overgrown, and lovingly replanted my rose bushes. The earth felt good beneath my hands, familiar and comforting. The vibrant colors returned. I bought myself a new sewing machine, a modern one, a little more efficient. The familiar whirring sound was a balm to my ears. The house once again smelled of warm apple pie on Sundays, a scent I realized I had truly missed. And the only sound that filled the rooms now was my favorite radio station, playing old melodies that brought a smile to my lips. It wasn't a magical new beginning, not exactly. Healing takes time. There were still days, quiet afternoons, when the longing for my son, for the boy he once was, would squeeze my chest. I found an old photo of him from his graduation, his eyes bright with hope and a future full of promise. And I cried then, not from anger this time, but from a deep, profound grief for a love that was lost, for a bond, my greatest asset. This house, the one I had poured my heart and soul into. I decided it would not go to the family. Not to Michael, not to Sophia, not to the grandchildren who were just echoes of their parents' choices. Instead, I will donate it to a shelter for neglected seniors, so that others who have gone through similar pain to mine, who have faced abandonment and disrespect, can find refuge, a safe haven, just as I had always intended this house to be. Michael tried to contact me once. He came to the house with the grandchildren in tow. I opened the door, and for a moment we just stood there. His gaze, however, couldn't meet mine. It kept flickering away, to the ground, to the rose bushes, anywhere but my eyes. He mumbled something, an apology perhaps, or an explanation. I didn't quite hear. I just walked over to the box I'd prepared, the one with their photos, and handed it to him. Then, I gently but firmly closed the door. Forgiveness, I discovered, is something you give to yourself, not always to others. And in that moment, I forgave myself for loving too much, for expecting too much, for clinging to a dream that was no longer real. And in that moment, I forgave myself for loving too much, for expecting too much, for clinging to a dream that was no longer real. That was a turning point, you know? A quiet shift deep inside me. Looking back now, with a little distance, I see things so much clearer. The greatest pain, I've realized, isn't simply the abandonment itself. It's not just being left alone in your old age or having your home taken from you. No, it's something far more insidious than that. The true sting, the deep wound that lingers, comes from being treated as if your entire story, your struggles, your sacrifices, your very being, have absolutely no value at all. They didn't just try to take a roof from over my head. They tried to take my dignity. They tried to erase Clara. It was as if all the years I spent building, nurturing, loving, they simply meant nothing. My life as a dressmaker, it cuts deeper than any spoken word because it implies you were never truly seen, never truly loved for who you were. But dignity, I've learned, is not something that can be taken from you by another person, no matter how cruel their words or actions. It's not in the walls of a house or in the recognition of others. Dignity is in here, inside you. It's in the strength you find to get back up, even when the world crumbles around you, even when your own flesh and blood turn their backs. It's in the quiet act of replanting your rose bushes, of fixing a broken seam, of simply putting one foot in front of the other. It's in remembering who you are when everyone else tries to tell you who you're not. I thought for a long time that my love, my motherly love, but each stitch I sewed, each pie I baked, each quiet moment in my garden, they were all acts of reclaiming myself. Small acts, yes, but powerful ones. They reminded me that I still had purpose, I still had skill, I still had a place in this world. And you? Have you ever felt invisible precisely to the people you helped grow the most? Have you ever felt that your love and care were turned into a burden just because time passed and you grew old? It's a sad truth, isn't it? How often we, the older generation, are made to feel less than, as if our years of experience, our wisdom, our very lives are suddenly obsolete, as if our stories are no longer worth listening to. Every memory held in your heart is a treasure, and no one, absolutely no one, not even your own blood, has the right to try and erase it. Your presence matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. You are not a burden. You are a testament to life itself, to resilience, to the enduring human spirit. Don't let anyone dim your light, no matter their age, no matter their relation to you. Hold on to your story, cherish it, and remember that its worth is undeniable. It is yours, and yours alone. And that is a powerful thing. Hold on to your story, cherish it, and remember that its worth is undeniable. It is yours. Yes, it truly is. After everything I've been through, all the hurt, the betrayal, the deep ache of disappointment, I find myself sitting here now in my own living room, the one I decorated with so much love, watching the light fade outside my window. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I feel a quiet, profound peace settle over me. It's not the peace of forgetting, no. You never truly forget something like that. But it's a peace born of knowing. Knowing I stood up for myself. Knowing I reclaimed what was rightfully mine. Not just this house, but my own sense of self, my dignity, my very identity. That quiet strength they thought was weakness, it became a longing for the son he once was, before greed and indifference hardened his heart. But those moments pass. They don't define me anymore. They are simply reminders of battles fought and won, not defeats. This home, it's no longer haunted by the shadows of the past. Instead, it's filled with my spirit, with the gentle hum of my new sewing machine, with the comforting scent of fresh-baked apple pie on a Sunday afternoon. It's filled with the music from my old radio, playing melodies that bring a smile to my lips and memories of happier times. This simple routine, these small, everyday moments of joy, they are my victory. They are my testament to living, truly living again. I walk through my garden, the one I replanted with my own 2 hands. I am not an old parasite. I am Clara Hayes, a woman who built a home, saw her dreams turn to ashes, and then slowly, patiently found herself again, stronger, clearer, and with a wisdom that only comes from enduring the harshest winters of life. My spirit isn't broken. It's just refined, like a fine piece of china that has been through a fire, emerging even more beautiful, more resilient than before. I'm still here, still standing, still creating, still loving. My life is my own again, and that truly is the greatest gift. Sharing my story, all of this has been such a release for me. A way to finally put it out there, to process it, to understand it, and to heal from it. It feels like reaching out, hand in hand, with all of you who might have felt something similar. And if hearing it, if feeling this connection, if these real, honest stories resonate with you, if they touch a place deep within your heart and remind you of your own strength, then I hope we can keep this connection going. Because, sometimes in this big, busy world, the platforms we rely on, like YouTube, they might be unsubscribing you without you even realizing. It happens. So if you want to keep receiving real stories like this, just take a moment to confirm you're still subscribed to the channel. And while you're there, hit that little bell icon, won't you? It's a small thing, I know, but it just ensures that we can keep sharing, keep connecting, keep building